When it comes to flirting, things aren't always as obvious as a wink or a cheesy pickup line. Sometimes someone can be dropping hints left and right. But if you're not tuned in, you might miss the signals completely, especially when it's a woman. Suddenly showing interest, women often flirt in nuanced, indirect ways which can fly under the radar. If you're not paying attention, here are 5 subtle and not so subtle signs she's flirting with you that you might be overlooking. Number 1, she finds reasons to be around you. It's easy to overlook the signs when someone is flirting with you, especially if their approach is subtle. In many cases, a woman who is interested won't always be overt in her actions. One of the most telling yet often missed indicators is when she finds reasons to be around you. This isn't about grand gestures or over-the-top signals. Instead, it's the quieter, repeated moments that might be saying more than you think you might notice, as showing up at the same coffee shop you frequent, timing her break just right, or somehow always being nearby when you're wrapping up at work. These occurrences may appear random at first glance. You might chalk it up to routine or coincidence. After all, you both work in the same building or live in the same neighborhood. Why wouldn't you run into each other? But here's where it gets interesting. It's not just about being in the same place. It's about how often she ends up near you and how she behaves when she's there. Also, if she tends to gravitate toward you, even when others are around, that's worth paying attention to. Maybe she chooses the seat next to you in a group sitting, or finds a way to start conversations that don't necessarily need to happen. These interactions might seem like small talk, but they often carry a purpose. She's choosing proximity as a way to connect, hoping you'll notice the effort without her having to say it outright. Additionally, digital spaces can be just as telling. If she suddenly appears in a group chat you're active in, or reacts frequently to your social media posts, it might not be accidental. It could be her way of inserting herself into your world, making her presence known in both subtle and consistent ways. The intention is not always to be direct, but to build familiarity and rapport. Furthermore, her consistency in being where you are should make you pause and consider the underlying reasons. Is it always random, or is there a pattern forming? If you find that she often ends up in your orbit more than others, it may not be chance. It could be her way of creating opportunities to talk to, share a laugh, to simply be near you. What you might be missing is the assumption that she's just friendly or happens to share your schedule. But when someone is consistently seeking ways to be close to you, especially when there's no clear need to be, that's a clue. It's not just about liking the same places or routines. It's about choosing to be present in your space again and again. So next time you see her nearby, think twice before brushing it off. Pay attention not just to where she is, but to how often she chooses to be near you, because sometimes the most genuine flirtation hides in plain sight, waiting for you to recognize it. Number 2, she laughs a little too hard at your jokes. It's a common scene. You're sharing a funny story or cracking a light joke, and the woman you're with bursts out laughing. Not just a small chuckle, but a full, enthusiastic laugh. At first you might think, wow, I'm funnier than I thought. But if this kind of reaction keeps happening, even with your more average punchlines, there might be something more behind that laughter than just your sense of humor. She laughs a little too hard at your jokes, and while that may seem like a compliment to your comedic skills, it could actually be a subtle sign that she's flirting. Humor is often seen as an attractive trait, and many women use laughter, not just to acknowledge a joke, but to express interest in these moments. She might be trying to show that she enjoys your company, wants to build a connection, and sees you as someone worth getting closer to. Also, the kind of laughter matters. It's not just about how loud or long it is, it's about the energy behind it. Is she leaning in while she laughs, making eye contact, touching your arm, or brushing her hair behind her ear? These gestures, when paired with laughter, often indicate that she's not just responding to your joke, she's responding to you. Laughter becomes a form of communication beyond the words being said. It's her way of saying, "I like being around you," without having to spell it out. Additionally, many men overlook this because they assume their humor is simply appreciated without realizing that laughter can also be strategic. It's a low-risk way for her to show interest without making a bold move. You might chalk it up to having a good sense of humor, but she might be using that laughter as a safe bridge toward intimacy, hoping you'll notice the spark she's trying to ignite. Furthermore, this kind of reaction isn't always about the joke itself. It's about who's telling it. When someone's genuinely attracted to you, they tend to see you through a more flattering lens. You become funnier, more charming, and more captivating in their eyes. That extra laughter is often a reflection of her excitement and emotional investment, not necessarily the strength of your punchline. So the next time she erupts into laughter at a joke, was only mildly amusing, pause for a moment, look beyond the laugh. Is she trying to tell you something without saying it outright? Her reaction may be a quiet invitation for you to recognize her interest and perhaps to laugh along with the possibility of something more. Number 3, she takes texts or messages you first. It's easy to miss the subtle signs when someone is interested in you, especially when those signals come wrapped in what seems like casual conversation. One of the most overlooked clues that a woman might be flirting with you is something deceptively simple. She texts or messages you first. At first glance, this might seem trivial or even routine. However, there's often more to it than just casual chit-chat. When a woman consistently initiates conversations, especially when there's no urgent reason to do so, it's rarely just for fun. She's likely looking for a way to stay connected with you, and texting gives her that opening. Whether it's a simple hi, a funny meme, or a random thought she just had, she's choosing to share her world with you. This behavior isn't about killing time. It's about establishing a rhythm of communication. Also consider the frequency and timing of these messages. If she reaches out regularly, especially during her downtime or late at night, it could be her way of letting you know you're on her mind. These are moments when people are usually selective about who they talk to. So if you're the one she's turning to for laughs, comfort, or company, it may be more than just friendly banter. What you might be missing is the assumption that she's simply being polite or friendly. It's a common mistake. Many people assume that if a conversation isn't explicitly romantic, then it must be platonic. But think about your own habits. How often do you go out of your way to talk to someone you're not really into? Chances are not that often. Most of us reserve that kind of energy for people who genuinely interest us. Additionally, her messages may be peppered with emojis, playful teasing, or inside jokes. These are all ways to build a connection that feels personal and unique. If she's creating that kind of rapport with you, it's likely intentional. And if you find yourself looking forward to her messages or smiling when you see her name pop up, there's already a spark, whether you've noticed it or not. Furthermore, it's important to consider the consistency of her communication. One random text might not mean much, but a steady pattern of engagement suggests intentionality. She's putting an effort to maintain that line between you, and that says a lot. When someone isn't interested, they don't usually invest that kind of time and emotional energy. So if you're wondering whether a woman might be flirting with you, take a closer look at your conversations. Her reaching out first isn't just a nice gesture. It could be her subtle way of saying she wants to be closer to you. All you have to do is pay attention. Number 4, she remembers small details. Flirting doesn't always come wrapped in grand gestures or overt declarations of interest. Sometimes it's hidden in the quiet, almost imperceptible ways someone shows they care. One of the most overlooked signs that a woman may be flirting with you is her ability to remember the small details you share. Those passing comments, the offhand remarks, the stories you didn't think twice about. While you might interpret this as her simply having a good memory, there could be something much more meaningful at play. When a woman recalls something you said in casual conversation, especially if it was something seemingly insignificant, it's worth paying attention to. Perhaps you mentioned your favorite childhood snack in a nostalgic moment, not expecting it to resurface. Then out of nowhere, she brings it up days or weeks later, maybe even surprising you with it. This isn't just about a strong memory, it's about emotional attentiveness. She's listening, not just to your words, but to the feelings behind them. This kind of attention signals a deeper level of interest. Also, when she remembers personal moments, like the fact that you have a big presentation next week, or that your dog had a vet appointment, she's showing she cares. These aren't just conversational fillers for her, they're points of connection. She's mentally bookmarking what matters to you because you matter to her. It's easy to miss this kind of flirting, especially if you're someone who tends to brush off compliments or thoughtful gestures. As simple kindness, additionally, many people are selective about what they remember. It's natural to retain information that feels important or emotionally resonant. So if she's consistently remembering what you tell her, especially when you weren't trying to make a big deal out of it, that's a sign it's her way of saying, without saying, I'm paying attention to you because you're important to me. Furthermore, this attentiveness often goes beyond just remembering facts. She might reference your stories and future conversations, link her experiences to yours, or check in on things you casually mentioned. This kind of follow-up isn't accidental, it's intentional. It's a subtle yet sincere form of connection building, often laced with affection. So while you might be wondering if she's just being polite or friendly, consider this: people don't hold on to the little things, unless those little things and the person who shared them matter. If she remembers what others might forget, if she brings up moments you'd barely recalled yourself, she may be quietly flirting with you, and she's hoping you'll notice number 5. Her friend act a bit suspicious. Flirting can be a subtle art, often filled with mixed signals, playful glances and nuances that are easy to overlook. If you've ever walked into a room and felt like something was going on beneath the surface, but couldn't quite put your finger on it, it might be because someone is flirting with you, and you just haven't caught on yet. One of the biggest clues her friends might be acting a bit suspicious. When a woman is interested in someone, her close friends are usually the first to know. They become her trusted, confident sounding boards, and sometimes her silent cheerleaders. So if you're unsure about how she feels, paying attention to her friends can provide surprising insight. For example, you might notice them giggling as you pass by, stealing glances in your direction, or whispering to one another when you're nearby. These reactions aren't random. They're often fueled by something she's shared with them about you. Also, if her friends nudge her or shoot her, that knowing look when you're around, it's a strong indication that you're the topic of recent conversations. Maybe she's been talking about how cute you looked the other day, or mentioned a moment you two shared that stood out to her. Their behavior becomes a kind of social code, one that suggests there's more going on than meets the eye. They might not say anything directly, but their subtle actions are part of the quiet choreography of attraction. Furthermore, you might find yourself feeling a little more self-aware in their presence, as though there's an inside joke you're not part of, or as if something is being orchestrated just out of your line of sight. That sensation, that instinctive awareness that something is different, is worth trusting. Sometimes your gut picks up on things your conscious mind hasn't quite caught. Her friends acting oddly could be your subconscious trying to tell you that you're being noticed and talked about, and likely in a good way. Additionally, this kind of behavior from her circle often reflects her own hesitation or shyness. Maybe she's not quite ready to make her feelings obvious, so her friends become the ones testing the waters. They might be gauging your reactions, checking to see if you smile back, or trying to help her make a move without putting herself too far out there. In a way, her friends become an extension of her interest, quietly helping her navigate the early UN stages of connection. So next time you notice giggles when you walk by or a sudden hush when you enter the room, don't dismiss it as paranoia or overthinking. These are often signs that something meaningful is happening. Just below the surface, her friend's playful and slightly suspicious behavior could be your best clue that she's into you and hoping you'll finally catch on. Thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for future videos.